Bort? Oh, come on, Bort?
Mommy, buy me a license plate.
No, come along, Bort.
Hello, and welcome to the Bort Experience, a Simpsons podcast. I'm your host, Cody Gallat. Today we are on episode 8 of season 2, 21 overall of The Simpsons, Bart the Daredevil. It was originally aired on December 6, 1990. It was written by Jay Kogan and Wallace Wolodarski, and it was directed by Wesley Archer. The chalkboard gag was I will not drive the principal's car, and the couch gag was Homer. He kind of sits on the couch, his weight kind of tips it over, the family falls, Maggie flips and lands on a cushion unharmed. The episode summary: The Simpsons go to a monster truck rally that features famous daredevil Lance Murdoch. Bart immediately becomes enamored and decides he wants to become a daredevil too. Bart first stunt ends in injury, and despite the family and Dr. Herbert's best efforts, he continues to attempt stunts. Bart decides to jump the Springfield Gorge, but Homer gets wind of his plan and makes Bart promise not to jump it. Bart immediately breaks his promise and goes to jump the gorge anyway, but Homer stops him just in time and finally gets Bart to swear he will stop being a daredevil. Homer accidentally ends up having to jump the gorge himself, failing in the attempt. Okay, so my overall thoughts on the episode. I thought it was really great. I really enjoyed it. One thing that really stood out to me was like the monster truck kind of beginning of the episode. So when I was a kid, I remember going with my dad to go see a monster truck rally. I remember seeing like Grave Digger. I think it was a really famous one, and I can't remember if it's like Monster Foot or Big Monster or something like that. I can't remember. There was another one I remember seeing as a kid, and maybe those trucks are still around, or I don't know. It's been a long time. But I remember going to a monster truck rally once as a kid and kind of bonding with my dad over that. And it's not something I'm really into now. It was just something as a kid. I think there's certain things that kids really like monster trucks, I think, are one of them. And then wrestling was kind of mentioned in this episode as well at the beginning. So I thought it was cool to see Bart and Homer kind of bond over a mutual thing that they enjoy. Also, back to the wrestling aspect of it, when I was a kid, 10 or 11, when The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H, I don't even know, I don't think any of them are active. I haven't watched wrestling in years, since about that time period. When I was in the 6th or 7th grade-ish area, I remember getting to see WrestleMania on pay-per-view, and it was great, and I loved it, and it was really enjoyable. Once I kind of found out when I got a little bit older that, wrestling's fake, it's not real, I was kind of like, it's whatever. It's kind of more like a soap opera to me. And I still remember to this day in high school, I was a freshman, and the senior, I was on the basketball team with him, and him saying he liked wrestling, and I was like, that's fake, right? And he's like, no, it's not, it's real. And he was being serious, and I'm just like, no, dude, it's totally fake. You do realize that, right? And he just honestly thought it was real. And I think some people do think it's real, because I think it kind of blends that, is it like boxing or MMA? It's wrestling. So I thought that was very, very interesting. But those are kind of my initial thoughts at the beginning of the episode. I also thought it was kind of cool, the Daredevil stunt nature of it. I feel like that's something that got really popular. I feel like in the 90s and early 2000s with skateboarding and pranks and stunts. So I think it's something that had a really big popularity, and it's kind of gone away. I mean, maybe it's still kind of popular, but I don't really see a lot about stunts or doing different kind of stunts anymore. But you could tell it's definitely an era of the time. I also like the Springfield Gorge sequence where Homer finally convinces Bart he and then inadvertently skateboards down it. And then he's pretty much proclaiming he's the king of the world because he thinks he's going to make it. And then he crashes down and hits his head and makes all these grunts and dope sounds. And it's honestly kind of bloody, so it's kind of surprising that they even had that much violence. And then I think what was so hilarious is when they air vac him out, he's bumping his head against the gorge, and then when he gets into the ambulance immediately crashes, and then his stretcher falls back down the gorge, and it's kind of just like one of those jokes that is so hilarious and kind of over the top that you can't help but laugh. besides that, there wasn't really a B plot this episode. There was kind of like Lisa trying to convince Bart that it's dangerous. It's the first introduction of Dr. Hibbert. And I thought, the voice was very close, but I feel like it kind of changes into the voice we know in later seasons. But I think it was, great to see him because he didn't have his typical kind of laugh that he does like at everything. I think eventually they start kind of modeling Bill Cosby, I think, on him. I think, and then once Stupid TV Be More Funny, that book, it kind of describes how the Simpsons were going up against Bill Cosby, and it's kind of, in retrospect, it's kind of crazy because Bill Cosby is like this disgrace piece of garbage who did all these horrible things, but it's kind of funny that they make fun of him and then ultimately surpass the Cosby Show, which at the time was one of the more probably the most popular, I should say, kind of family sitcoms of that era. So I thought that was great. So next, we're moving on to the citizens of Springfield. So we had Dan Castanella as Homer, Barney, Lance Murdoch, and then we had Julie Carvener as Marge, Nancy Cartwright as Bart, Rod, and Nelson, Yardley Smith as Lisa, and Harry Shearer as announcer, Ned Flanders, Skinner, insurance adjuster, and Dr. Hibbert and Otto. We had Hank Azaria as Moe, Pamela Hayden as Milhouse, and Maggie Roswell as Lewis, the tour guide. The MVP of the episode, I have to give it to Bart and Homer. I thought, it was mainly a Bart episode, but I still really like the bonding with Homer and his concern for Bart, not wanting him to do the actual jump and endanger his life. So I really enjoyed just their bonding as them as father and son. It was primarily Bart doing these stunts and it being affected by TV. I also like the commentary on like, hey, TV does all these horrible things, but people still watch it because it's entertaining. I thought that was kind of funny meta commentary. The best joke of the episode, it's a scene between Bart and Otto when they take a field trip to the actual gorge where Bart gets the idea to jump it. Bart, Otto, I'm going to leap over the Springfield Gorge on my skateboard. Otto, Bart, as the only adult here, I feel like I should say something. Bart, what? Cool! I like how Otto is in a continual state of either being high or on drugs, and he's like really the only. I would say Otto is probably like in his 20s or maybe just graduated. I don't know, like 18 to 25 kind of range. And he's like a role model to these kids because he's the bus driver, but he's like a horrible role model and does all these things that are not safe. And how he's the actual bus driver is beyond me. But I thought that was a great joke though by him. It's like the only adult, and it's funny because Otto gives him this advice, and then the Daredevil guy says to do it as well. So all these people that he looks up to are telling him to do it, while his sister and his mom and dad are telling him no, which kids usually rebel against their parents to begin with. So I just kind of thought it was funny. It kind of feeds into his rebellious nature that Bart has. Now it's time for my favorite segment, the trivia. So let us read the trivia question. Where do Bart, Nelson, and Martin and Milhouse go for spring break? Where do Bart, Nelson, Martin, and Milhouse go for spring break? Subscribe to the podcast, like, comment, catch out the answer Mondays at 9 Eastern time. But since you're already here, let us read the answer. To Knoxville, Tennessee to see the World's Fair. I remember this episode quite a bit because they get to the fair and of course it's not really going on anymore, and they kind of just have this kind of like adventure. It's like a very coming of age story, which I know they're only like 10 years old, but it's one of those like really great episodes where we get to focus on these kids, and it's very like I don't know, like Stand By Me kind of ish, where it's like, or like Sans Lot, or like that kind of like very coming of age kind of story, which I really enjoy. So please subscribe. I'm up to 149 subscribers. The channel's doing really well. I'm having a lot of fun. Hopefully, I don't know, it's hard with time, but I'm hoping to get more types of content out there, but gonna keep doing strong with the Simpsons podcast. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and until next time, peace out.